The most convincing statement is that the idea of relativism is inherently contradictory in its very essence. And you might have heard this before. If there is really no absolute truth, then how could a relativist teach it as true? It's self-contradictory, and that is enough. From the viewpoint of an idea, the statement of that idea cannot hold up because the statement cannot be made. So that's a kind of a theoretical view of, is there such thing as objective truth? You cannot say there isn't, because if you said there isn't, then you're defeating the argument. It blows the whole theory apart. It's never been convincingly challenged, that idea. But most people on the street would say, yeah, I believe an apple's an apple, but I don't necessarily believe that abortion is always wrong. Okay, so we've got relativism in morality. There are notable exceptions though. Some people, do think that even reality can be subjective. For instance, 2 years ago, I think, somebody entered a charcoal sketch into the Archibald Prize, which you might recall is a famous portrait prize, and one of the rules is it has to be a painting. He entered a charcoal sketch, and it was actually allowed to go through some of the process, and well, this is not a painting, and the artist said, well, I believe it's a painting, and they were okay. Being, most artists being postmodernists as they are, they go, okay, well, it's a painting then. That's kind of the mad ideas. But look, it's even infiltrating the education system. Science is kind of held out as being, well, it's kind of held up as the only thing that governs the truth. But if you look at, say, the new national science curriculum that's proposed to be foisted upon Australia by the Deputy Prime Minister, it is chock-a-block full of relativism in science. So you study the scientific understanding of the human body, then you look at the Aboriginal understanding of the human body and what their understandings of anatomy was, and ancient Chinese understandings of the human body. They don't care whether the Aboriginal understanding of the human body was actually very heavily incorrect, or even the other cultures. But the idea is, well, science is a little bit too strict on objective truth. We've got to free it up a bit. Let's free it from being accurate. Sounds like a good idea. But when we get to this morality, in general, it's they believe that morality is subjective. Okay, and that's a quote from a wonderful professor I know named Dr. Tracy Rowland. She says, the problem with relativism is that it denies that there are such things as truth, goodness and beauty that are not simply an individual's perception. End of quote. The questions as to whether actions are good or bad are usually seen relatively in today's world, and most people claim that old moral codes are outdated. Often they proclaim the freedom of the current age, which doesn't make anyone feel guilty. Okay, so they free themselves from moral truth by claiming there is none. But we'll see what that freedom actually entails. The idea that there is a moral truth and purpose to our actions or our lives is inherent within us. This was spoken of very well by Pope John Paul II in his encyclical Veritatis Splendor. And he says, in the depths of the human heart, to quote, there always remains a yearning for absolute truth and a search to obtain full knowledge of it. This is eloquently proved by man's tireless search for knowledge in all fields. It is proven even more by his search for the meaning of life. End quote. That's from the introduction of Veritatis Splendor. Okay, and we're all university students. We're all here learning, seeking to achieve something in our lives. That is something you'll find in every human heart, and that has a meaning. It means something. It means that we actually are searching for the truth. Okay, so let's talk about morality. Does it matter? Does it matter morality matter? Does it matter if we get it right or wrong? Isn't morality just an idea? Well, that's not true. Morality matters. Whether something is right or wrong matters because morality affects actions. Okay, and you know, to use the reference that I quoted from St. John's Gospel, Pontius Pilate was a Roman procurator, judging whether or not criminals were guilty or innocent. If he did not believe in truth, it is no wonder that he condemned the most innocent man in history to the cruelest death in the known world. Relativism is dangerous and destructive. It enables people to do what they like and make up their own rules, and this has caused untold suffering and confusion. Imagine if the government decided that it will abolish all law and let people make it up for themselves, which is what anarchists want. What, you know, rhetorical question, what do you think would happen? Would we become more free? Would we be given liberty? Perhaps the terror of the French Revolution is a good historical example of an attempt at doing that. The way we perceive good and bad affects the world. It is not just confined to things like pinching money from your parents' wallet or throwing rubbish in the bush. It is the fundamental basis of human actions. Communism, the Holocaust, genocide, world wars and slavery are based on a human being's perception of what is good or ill, as was Mother Teresa's work in India or a care of a mother for her child. These are moral decisions we make day by day. Let's have a look at perhaps some well-known instances where it does make a difference whether you believe in truth or not, and how it affects, and right or wrong, and how that affects the way people act. Pedophilia and the church, okay, particularly pedophilia and priests. If you look at one of the most famous and heinous or infamous cases of it being widespread in Boston, and you follow the trail of what actually happened, we see a number of priests who are behaving absolutely despicably. They get sent off to a psychologist, and the psychologist teaches them that pedophilia is not wrong, that it is a legitimate sexual desire, but you can't act on it. Okay, that's what the many of them were. That's the therapy they were given. Okay, that there's no, you know, and you'll find that in if you look into, say, social welfare courses. There is no such thing as right or wrong. It's just simply what's legal or illegal, what will or won't get you into trouble. And that's the way they were presented. The bishop gets a phone call. He's been through therapy. He's responded well. He's ready to go back in to parish life. What an absolutely destructive thing. And that is not to take away the moral, the moral culpability from the actual perpetrators of these terrible things. But if you attempt to make everything simply a personal choice, what happens? In the end, people's lives are destroyed. That's one example. Let's have a look at sex education, drinking and drugs that happens in schools. Okay, there's been no decrease in society's desire for drugs, alcohol, and, you know, heavy drinking and sex outside of marriage. There's been no significant decrease, but there's been an enormous increase in promoting the idea that no, there is no right or wrong action. Drugs aren't wrong, they're just a bad choice because you will hurt yourself, and you don't want to really hurt yourself, so we're going to give you all the information available about these things. So this is a bong, this is how you make one, this is what they look like. These are all, let's do an assignment on all the different types of drugs. Okay, cocaine, I've seen them, I've read them, I've read these assignments, I've seen the curriculum. I was told to teach it once. There's no right or wrong. The word right or wrong doesn't come into it. It's just good or bad choice, good or bad personal choice. Okay. You're not going to have young people make good or bad personal choices in that regard without an understanding of whether it's right or wrong. People desire something higher to live for.